Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Staff Best Practices for Organizational Courses. My name is Jamie Rim. I am one of the instructional designers from ATS. Also joining me are the other instructional designers, Jennifer Laris, as well as Mark Lim, who's going to be here to assist me today in this session by helping me answer any types of questions in the chat, as well as providing you all some great resources that I'll be going over today. Thank you. Okay, with that being said, I wanted to go over today's agenda. First one being some housekeeping rules. Please use the chat toolbox to ask your questions during the presentation, and you can also elect to save your questions during the Q&A part of the presentation as well. We will be going over what an organizational course is, as well as going over some considerations when we are thinking about using these organizational courses. We also want to get into the mindset of department needs, as well as maybe different alternative options that are available to you. We will go over some of the design best practices in your organizational course in the form of navigation, as well as organization. We will have some time to have a deeper discussion or conversation as well about organizational courses in the discussion portion of this session. And lastly, excuse me, we will have a Q&A at the very end. Okay, to get it started, what is an organizational course? Essentially, it's a special course site in Canvas where staff, department leaders, program chairs, and club advisors kind of manage department organizations to communicate and also engage with various groups such as students, staff, and faculty. Organization leaders are responsible for maintaining and monitoring these organizations. And today I'll be going over some of the best practices to kind of help with these organizational courses. I want to point out that some of the examples we're going over today might not be a catch-all, and each department has their own specific needs. For today's example, we're going over some of the most common reasons. And if you feel that your department has a specific need, then please feel free to reach out to us for one-on-one consultation with any of the instructional designers to kind of go over your specific need for your organization, of course. Some considerations I wanted to go over while managing your organizational course in Canvas is going to be the course level roles. Now, org leaders are considered, teacher roles in the LMS, while your participants are considered either a participant or a student. These are the role types you want to consider, since these roles are very important. Each has, more or less permissions in Canvas based on the roles you actually assign your participants. For example, teacher roles for, being an org leader has permission to kind of edit the organization as well as maintaining it, while your participants who are assigned either the participant or student roles do not. So we want to be cautious on what roles we are assigning the participants when we are adding people in the organizational courses, since we don't want to give teachers permissions to any of our participants in our orgs. In the next slide, I'll be going over the permissions of each of these roles. Now, the chart's going to illustrate, the different types of permissions in Canvas. Some of the more notable things to point out is that the teacher roles are able to create and modify events in the course calendar, add or remove organizational roles and people in the course, as well as manage the course content itself. Hence why it's, really important to pay attention to the roles that we are assigning the participants, since the permissions they are granted can affect the organization greatly. The students and participant roles are virtually the same, but since we are managing organizational course, then participants may be a better suited role to assign than opposed to students, which are better reserved for more traditional courses being taught in Canvas. Now, some notable permissions for both the student and participant roles in Canvas are that they're able to post in the discussion. They're able to see the class roster, which you can toggle to hide as we choose to do so, as well as the ability to send and receive emails. Another consideration worth mentioning is going to be the notification settings in Canvas. Your participants have control over how they want to receive notification within Canvas. They can, elect to have no notifications, which is alarming. Therefore, going over how they want to receive the notification in Canvas, it's going to be really important, just because the announcements that you are creating within these orgs are not going to reach your participants in these cases. Since participants do need a CHOB login into Canvas, this is probably not the best for reaching out to cases like alumni. Please take the time to kind of go over the Canvas notification settings with your participants to make sure that they are turned on and that they are being notified to the preferred email. Now, communication in a department org is very important, and making sure that your participants are receiving these notifications is going to be key to the success of a organizational course. Another consideration I want to go over is going to be the announcements within Canvas. You're able to configure your course homepage to display up to 15 announcements at one time. And in this example, you're going to currently see that there's 2 announcements being displayed in the course homepage. And this is very useful if you are heavily reliant on using announcements to kind of communicate with your participants within your org. You'll have the ability to manage how many are being displayed at one time and make sure that the most important announcements and information are actually going to be at the top and actually be the first thing your participants are going to be seeing. Now, what is or are your department and organizational needs? This is something I want you to kind of think about when we are managing an organizational course. Are we meeting these needs? Is there a more efficient way to actually accomplish them? And these are some of the things you want to check off when you are deciding when to use the organizational course. And the first one being, if your organization's site is an academic organization that provides information, announcements, and or surveys to either the participants or the enrolled users, either be automatically enrolled or manual enrollments. Also, if your organization site is a course, for example, student orientation, professional development, job qualifications, as well as test practices. And also, if your organization uses any of the following LMS features, such as the announcements, surveys and or quizzes, discussion boards, the assignments specifically for uploading approved and signed documents. These are all good indicators, kind of help determine if your department should, utilize organizational courses. And now there will be instances there might be a more efficient way or efficient option to kind of meet the needs of a department. And that's what I'll be going over in the alternative options. Using, an organizational course might not be the best or the most efficient option. And here we'll go over some of the suggestions for the alternative methods to best meet the needs of your department. And you should seek alternative options if your department is using an organizational course as a repository and are providing your participants with a place for information, then we consider using Microsoft OneDrive as a better alternative. If you are, a staff member that you might have already used or familiar with OneDrive in one capacity or another. For those of you who are familiar, OneDrive is a tool that lets you kind of create, save, and share documents in the cloud storage that can be accessed through any device from anywhere. Now, some of the benefits of using a OneDrive would be going to be the storage limits. If your organization is mainly used to kind of store or share documents in, OneDrive might be a better fit. Each Canvas organization has a storage limit of 5.2 gigabytes, while OneDrive has actually a higher capacity at 1 terabyte. As these organizations continue to grow and content's being added, you won't have to actually worry about, reaching a storage limit within the organization. Another added benefit of using OneDrive would be that it's free. The product is, free. It can be accessed through your Software Depot webpage. As long as you are a staff, faculty, or student, the software is provided for you free of charge. Another benefit is going to be the convenience factor. OneDrive is easy to access, the documentations, different files, just by a share of a link. Drive lets you manage the access to these files by, generating a link that you can send to participants. You can also allow people within the link to be able to read only or edit the document. So you kind of have a little bit more leeway of types of access you want to grant to your participants versus having, the participants go through your Canvas course and look for, documents in the LMS. And this can be more time consuming depending on how organized the organization courses actually are. Now, a resource that I did want to share with you all is going to be the Software Depot website link, which will be shared into the chat. Thank you, Mark. And if you don't have Microsoft OneDrive already installed and you want that to get installed, please feel free to visit the website and feel free to access it. As I mentioned, if you're long as you're working here as a staff member, it's going to be free of charge. So make sure you take advantage of that. Now, another alternative options that you want to bring up is if your organization course is used for alumni outreach, consider using a distribution list instead. Now, alumni might not have access to their CHLB email since, once they graduated, they'll have a transition period to where they might not have access to their CHLB email accounts because they are no longer a current student. Thus, information you are trying to send to them through the organizational courses will not actually reach the participants. Some of the benefits to using a emailing list would allow you to actually reach your alumni who no longer have access to their CHP emails. Instead, you can contact them and send the information to their non-campus emails, such as professional, such as their personal emails, thus allowing them to actually receive the valuable information from your organization. To set up an emailing list, please contact your local college department desktop support, or feel free to email helpdesk@chulb.edu, which is also going to be provided in chats, which is going to provide you, a distribution emailing list can be set up, and they're going to be able to assist you with that whole process. Now, another alternative options that is if your organization is used for mainly communication purposes, consider using either Microsoft Teams or Zoom instead. Either of the Microsoft Teams or Zoom will allow you to have the benefit of instant communication with your team or group members from the organization. The participants don't really have to go into Canvas and use it in a form of communication, just because it does take some time to get back since it is more set up as an asynchronous modality. Instead, the utilization of either the Teams or Zoom can provide you instant communication with your participants to also not only answer any types of questions, but also it's going to provide you an environment for collaboration. Both the Teams and Zoom features allow you and utilizes different tools to actually have a collaborative working environment for you and your participant. So if you are new to Microsoft Teams and want to actually learn more, please feel free to attend these vendor provided trainings at these below dates. And these, again, it's going to be free of charge. One we have up and coming is going to be October 27th from 11 to 12 p.m. That focuses on Teams meeting and workshop, as well as November 14th from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. That focuses on next steps in the Teams workshop. And these are going to be provided, the registration links are going to be provided in the chats. So if you want to learn a little bit more and not familiar with the Teams, or maybe want to do a little bit more in depth, please feel free to check out these sessions. And like I mentioned, they're free of charge by the vendor. So please feel free to take advantage of that. Now, some of the best practices we want to consider when we are designing these organizational course. The first one being navigation. Navigation does refer to the movement of your participants from one place to another within the organizational courses with ease. Now, navigation throughout the course, we want it to be consistent, logical, efficient, which makes for more of a greater user experience for the participants in your organizational courses. To achieve this, we do want to focus on having consistent layout and properly working links and hyperlinks within your org. And in the next slide, I'll be covering each of these. Now, for layout, to achieve this, we want to focus on consistent layout, which means you want to make the information and documents and media kind of easy to access and locate from anywhere within the course. Adding structure and having hierarchies such as modules highlighted in red will allow your participants to actually move easily throughout the organization course. And this is done by clearly labeling and utilizing modules and providing content that fits under that module. The content, is formatted to have a specific purpose. The modules and submodules are used to purposely communicate, different key points. Similar contexts are grouped together and emphasize, relevant relationships. I also want to point out, the utilization of white spaces and negative space around the content to kind of help different comprehension and also reduce eye fatigue that occurs when there is you know an overly usage of either large blocks of text as well as images that are being used. The best way to think about it is that white space. Think of white space as a breathing room for your eyes, and that's the best way to look at it. Now, getting into links and hyperlinks using an organizational course, we want to ensure that both internal and the external links are properly working and they're not broken. Having a broken link can prevent your participants from reaching the location or the information that we actually want to convey to them. This may confuse or even frustrate your participants, and it can actually make navigation through the org more difficult. Instead, we want to check that all the links are, taking the participants to the appropriate areas in the organization. And if it's, an internal link, and taking them to the source of information, if it is an external link. Now, for the bottom examples, you will see that the external link errors that reads, can't reach this page. And then the second example is going to show an internal link error that reads, whoops, looks like the thing is here and the page is not found. Both of these are some things that we do not want our participants to see, and ensuring that the links are, properly working will prevent you from seeing these errors messages for both the internal and external links using the organizational courses. Another design best practice I want to go over is going to be organization within the course. The design element, it's going to help increase the usability and readability while also minimizing distractions. The content should be clearly organized and presented so that participants can easily read and interpret the information, and to help organizations within your organizational course to focus. You want to focus on headings, and with the headings, they're used to kind of help indicate the change of topic, and the body styles are consistent throughout the course. And font styles, the sizes are selected to maximize, on-screen legibility, as well as more simpler fonts are chosen, and the number of font families is limited to either one or two. And then the text is in a contrasting color, and it makes it clearly distinguishable from the actual background. So it's going to help with accessibility and contrasting colors. Now, getting into the discussion portion of the session, I really want to spend the time to have more of a deeper conversation about some of your experiences using organizational course. And I also put together some guiding questions to kind of help kickstart this conversation. We don't have to follow it, but it's just to kind of help, make the conversation kind of start going and getting everybody in the mindset. Something I did want to throw out there is part of this discussion now, how have you used your organizational courses? Feel free to unmute yourself and kind of share away, and you could also feel free to use the chats as well. If you're needing to process some of your responses, take a little bit longer. Feel free to use either or.
Hi. So I haven't used it at all. I'm trying to figure out and just get as much information just to see how I can put something together for our students. Trying to build a orientation course,
Oh,
basically.
perfect.
So if you have any successful examples of any departments that have used Canvas for their orientation or are thinking about it, I don't know if you'd be able to show us or share with me a template or something.
Yeah, I did because they're kind of I try to look for like examples that are like really displayed what I'm trying to get the crux of what I'm going over today, and I noticed that you know they staff members that are in charge of an org, I know utilization of groups it's very beneficial, right? For example, I remember there's like a course or org that was onboarding, and they had different groups defined. One is undergraduates, and ones are graduates.
Mhm.
So that's really helpful, right? Because you're not needing to kind of create manage two orgs. You're using the same one, but you're kind of disseminating the information to the appropriate groups that it's more relevant to or relevant to if they're undergraduate or a graduate. I could look for some. It's just it's a little bit harder to find one that perfectly uses it, but this, everybody uses it so many different ways at
Right,
um, uh, different needs of your department. So it was kind of hard to find one that captured it all. I
right.
literally took like if I had to like tell you, it's like it took about a day to really find something really good, but I'm just like, it doesn't really get the whole picture of what I'm trying to do
Mhm.
today. So there's going to be a lot of resources, Jenith. I'm going to, in the later on in the slides, I'll show you how to actually request an org and kind of get you started to have like a shell. And there's definitely templates you can utilize to kind of get you started. Have you used orgs before in the previous LMS, Beachboard at all?
Yeah, so I've actually been working with Mark and
Oh, cool.
I requested the shell already.
Awesome.
I don't even know where to start, but um
Gotcha.
I just
Okay.
thought maybe, listening to others share their experience and trying to get the most information would be helpful. And then our students, I work for the language program on campus. So our
Awesome.
students don't fall into undergrad or grad anyway. And so it's very difficult to know like what's going to work and what's not. But I guess, we'll just try it out.
Yeah, yeah, and you've talked to Mark already, but you could also anybody here, right, could set up an appointment with any of the instructional designers to kind of go over your specific need.
Hmm.
Just because I know that every department, every staff member has different needs.
Hmm.
That's this today was just the most common ones, not the all catch all.
Right.
So feel free to to continue to have these ID consultations with us by if you could just send an email to the ATS dash instructional design at csub.edu. You can just set up an appointment and kind of go a little bit more in depth of what your needs are. If you need a little bit more personalization as well as more handholding, we're here to assist you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. Anybody else feel free to kind of share how they've used their own personal experiences using organizational courses. Feel free to, okay, use some of the chats as well. Okay, Rochelle, you're saying mainly used to send out announcements, job opportunities. Hey, awesome. Off-campus related to our majors. Awesome.
Yeah, I had a question on that.
Mhm.
So sometimes we post things as a news announcement, and then sometimes I use Beachboard to actually send like an email blast.
Okay.
And sometimes it's because like maybe the flyer or the flyer that was provided to us by this off-campus employer is too large or something to post in Beachboard or one or the other. I remember like one got an error, so I did the other. So
Mhm.
like, do you have any suggestions as to which one's better or which like what parameters would be better set for an email versus a Beachboard or versus your LMS
Mhm.
news announcement
I would say it's
or
it's
vice versa?
it's a matter of preference and kind of like your participants and have what they have as a setting. For example, if you did utilize the announcement feature and the participants elected to not receive notification on announcement, the only time they're being able to see it is if they visit the actual LMS and see the announcements in the front page. If you wanted to elect to use the inbox feature, um, that's also, again, it points back to the notification. As long as your participants elect to receive notification for announcements as well as the inbox messages, then they will get it. Um, as far as which one is better, I just think it's preference. There's no wrong way to utilize it. I know you kind of spoke to maybe some of the different limitations, right, of the different information or flyers, right, that might have some uh, not issues, sorry, limitations as far as like memory size when we're sending out
Mhm.
things. I do know, when you're using Canvas, it has a rich content editor, which you can pretty much upload. I've seen, very long PDF documentation for reading. If you're posting it into the announcements, I don't see it having a limitation as far as a particular file size might be too big. For the inbox feature within Canvas, sending out notices that way, I haven't really stress test like the limitations as far as I know. I've taught to and had conversations with staff members and faculty in regards to that. I haven't came across a case or a scenario where they've kind of complained specifically in Canvas about having reached a certain limitations when you are sending a file or things like that. So I can't really speak too much on that, but
Do we have visibility to know like each user's or each participant's notification settings? So like, oh well, 50% of them have announcements turned off. So for
yeah.
our org course, so it doesn't, I'd better email them, kind of thing.
Right. You won't have access to see what their notification settings are. That's why in the presentation or session I kind of brought up, it would be wise to have a section or however you want to address to kind of go over and make sure that they are turned on, because that's like a big thing about it, right? Like if they're enrolled in your organizational course and they don't have the settings kind of already on, or more, if they have it to an email that they don't use, then they won't get the notification. So it's good to kind of visit and revisit to make sure that they are appropriately turned on, as well as it's going towards the email that they're actually checking and getting notification to. So yeah, unfortunately, we can't check to see their settings. But
When you add, like I think in Beachboard, in Beachboard, when you're adding a user manually, it'll there's a parameter in there to say, do you want to email or notify the student or whoever, right, that they're being added to this course? Is there a default like email template that gets sent out so that you can say, make sure you check your settings and your notifications are turned on, that we can edit? Or
there is a email notification gets sent out when you are adding individuals and participants within the org, but I'm not sure if you can like edit that message. I think it's more of an automatic message that says, "Hey, you've been added to this, course or organization in Canvas." But I don't think you could edit that message. Team, if you have any input on if you could edit that, I think it's just an automatic notification that gets sent to the user that you're actually adding. Jen?
The ones that go out from the inbox to the user email, right? That's what you're talking about?
Upon when you're adding participants, when you're enrolling, participants within the org, they get sent a automatic email that says like, "Hey, you've been enrolled in this course, please accept." But I don't think you could edit that to include, "Hey, make sure you adjust your account settings so you get the notifications."
Yeah, that's a set system message. That's not something I think we are able to necessarily edit.
So maybe just do an email, an inbox type thing after to say, hey, this is what this means. You're invited to this course. Make sure your notifications are turned on properly, so you can receive our messages, kind of deal. Okay.
Yeah,
even though the default is turned on, so they can understand what this course is that's showing up on their LMS.
Yeah, I would even take it as far as making it sending an email as well as like an announcement too, right? So make sure that they are making sure they're cognizant of what notification settings they already have turned on or to a specific email, so they're actually getting that message or information the organization is trying to relay and give to them. And yeah, even if it even means creating a module, right, to make sure they flying through the steps and going through each module. One of them would just be how to make sure that they're enabling and have these notifications on and to the preferred email. The redundancy is great since we can't control where they go within the course, as long as we provide it in the email notification inboxes, the announcements, and maybe even have a dedicated module to that. I think it's going to be harder to miss having them to kind of double check and making sure that they are getting the notification, and it should be you know adjusted to where they're receiving it to their appropriate emails.
So can you hear me? I'm Lark.
Like, yes.
Yeah. So I was just recently, I managed the STEM peer mentors for HSI STEM. And when the pandemic happened, we did all of our trainings online through Beachboard.
Right.
And it was awesome. It was so helpful to have everything in one place. I did not email the mentors. We communicated through Beachboard at all times. They were, these are paid positions, so they were instructed that they had to turn on their notifications, and they had to read both their email and their Beachboard, at least twice a day, morning and afternoon or whatever. And so it was super helpful. I think someone already shared that every notification, or every event that I got a flyer for, I posted in announcements. I created modules for each of the days. I uploaded video. I uploaded links. I gave them thorough instructions. So it was kind of like I was an instructor.
Yeah, a little bit, right? Because it has a lot of functionalities that are similar.
Functionality, yeah. But what I liked so much about it is everything is in one place. Like, I don't have to go find an email that I sent to a student. I can direct them to check Beachboard, check Beachboard, check Beachboard. And they're used to it because they're using it every day with their own instructors.
Right. Yeah. And then, like you said, it's like a one-stop shop, right?
Yeah.
So then you're not having to relay, what was it in email? Was it in XYZ communication source? It's all in one.
Right.
And have you, Lark, used the organization in Canvas? I know you mentioned.
No, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm
okay.
But I understand it's similar, so I'm not really concerned. But I do need to, make that switch.
Okay.
I also think that what was I going to say? I think it's just important that the students just, everything that, if they come up with this idea that I didn't see that, I didn't get that email, there's really, unless they didn't get notified, and if they didn't get notified, then they didn't have their notifications on. Everything is housed here. So you can always say, it's in Beachboard, check that folder, check that folder. There's no excuse not to have access to something.
Yeah, it's like what I talked about, right? It's like building that redundancy, right? Having an announcement, having a dedicated module, having it sent out a notification, and then by all means, if they miss it all, then it would be in the course, and they can just look there.
That's right.
Something I did want to touch on, you mentioned, Lark, that it's from Beachboard to Canvas, it's still a lot of similarities. Even the act of you copying over your content from your Beachboard to Canvas, it's something that that's what some of the organization courses have been doing. So a lot of the information is going to look almost exactly how it is and how it currently exists in your Beachboard. The only thing I kind of want to put out there is that make sure the links, especially internal, they're going to be broken, right? Because it's a different LMS. So I do want to emphasize for you to visit the internal links if you're referring participants to kind of go over certain modules, certain sections within the course, that you're fixing them because they're going to be taken over to the old LMS, which is the Beachboard. So I just want to put that out there. Awesome. Now, you guys are kind of already been doing this already, but what are some of the advices you want to share with your peers? I know some of you might touched upon this already, but if you feel like you want to share, some of the things, advices to kind of manage these orgs, feel free to share as well.
One of the things that I really liked, and I'm assuming that Canvas has the same thing, is that I can make a module accessible anytime I want. So if I know, Janeth, you had said that you were doing some kind of orientation. So you can be working on a particular presentation or something that you want the parents or the students to see, but you can only you only want them to see it at a certain time. they have to view it, before this certain due date or whatever. You can, make it accessible on a day and a time, and then it ends on a day and a time. So, you don't have to backtrack. And for me, it was just, if the peer mentors had homework, I only gave them a certain amount of time to have it turned in. And if they didn't do it, then they missed out. And so then I have to go back and review and, talk about what happened there and stuff like that. So you can really control the amount of content that you release based on each module.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, that's same. That's you're able to do that in Canvas as well. So no worries there. But it's really good to kind of have timed to kind of provide users kind of like more time management, right? It's not there forever. They kind of have to be a little bit more proactive and check. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. If anybody else want to give any other advice to peers? Something that I kind of want to add on is that, organizing the content in your org and utilizing modules and submodules, label the modules to have a particular category. We want to be able to, group items that fall under the same category, and it's going to help identify the difference between each category and then between the modules, and letting kind of your participant know what they're actually looking for. For example, I've seen orgs used to kind of have meeting notes, and it should be housed under one module, as well as participating sub modules to have different dates to kind of distinguish between which meeting notes took place on what day. Because if we just have it all in one module and just this big gate of notes, it's going to be a little bit hard to kind of navigate and look through. So I highly encourage you to also use sub module folders to kind of help break down and help identify easily. So instead of having just one big old module that has a bunch of meeting notes, it's just divided by the dates. Makes it a little bit easier for your users to kind of go through and sift through the information that they need. So if they've missed a meeting, they can just refer back to the actual module that has the labeled and organized appropriately. Yeah.
So Jamie, I'm not sure if you're going to go through all of the, I don't think you have the time to go through all of the features, but another feature that I found really helpful that I didn't realize was available to me until someone told me was that I can go see what assignment, who actually opened up the module, and, maybe they didn't finish it, but they opened it up. Right. And so I can actually see, I can just by clicking, that I forget what it's called on the right-hand side, that right tab. I can see all the students that actually clicked on the module or did the module. It'll give me the date. So I don't have to go and look at all the assignments and check it off that way. I can just look at that real quick list of who completed it. And then, it just gave me some great information to follow up later on.
Yeah, so Canvas allows you to look at the progress of your participants. Yeah, it's like you mentioned, it's going to show what they visited, what page they were on, how long, how many times they logged in. It gets really granular. And if you needed a little reminder for your participants or anything like that and checking their progress, Canvas does have that feature where it kind of gives you all the information, so you can do a lot of proactive measures to kind of make sure that your participants are engaged and they're not having any issues or trouble. So Lark, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, just to backtrack a little bit, since I kind of jumped a little bit. If you are interested in getting in an org in Canvas, you would have to fill out a organization request form, and that's going to be provided in the chats for you all. And if you just wanted to get a feel of what it looks like in Canvas, feel free to request one, and to be able to develop a shell for you. And from there, you can opt to actually migrate your Beachboard content over to Canvas, which is something, if you want to use a lot of similar things found in Beachboard, you can do that as well. And, just kind of to get exploring and seeing what Canvas is all about. So feel free to put a request. Rochelle?
So you said you can migrate your course over, so you can have them both kind of simultaneous, right? Kind of like how teachers are using.
Yeah, you could have both, because we're gonna right now we're in a transition period, right, where we're having both beach board and canvas, but after fall 2023, we're gonna discontinue and not support beach board anymore, and everything's gonna be fully on canvas. So good time as ever now, right, to kind of get situated, kind of understand canvas. Like I said, it's for the most part, it's a lot of similarities, but it's good for you to kind of explore and get your feet wet and kind of understand the LMS. You're a little bit more comfortable, and you're going to have the ability to migrate over your content over to canvas once you have that shell that you requested in the canvas.
And then it'll be like a live show. So it's not like a sandbox where I could see
Exactly.
actually posting things through Canvas to
Mhm.
practice. Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. I mean, you yourself can request as a staff member a sandbox for you to kind of play around with, but you kind of have the same abilities when you're having a development shell or sandbox, except that one is just everybody sees, the other one is just for yourself. So yeah, feel free to dabble into that. Jason has a question. Can this org be built in the sandbox? If you do still need to request, it can be built in the sandbox, but a sandbox would be more set up like a traditional course. You would have to transfer it to more of like kind of like not a live course, but a course where participants can actually access it. Obviously, you don't want them to access your sandbox. So I would still request a org to be made in Canvas, so then you could start importing or adding any participants that way, because you don't want to utilize your sandbox that way, that in that manner. Yeah. Okay. Next, it's going to be a survey link. It's going to be provided in the chats. As we provide these different sessions, there's always room for improvement. So please feel free to put in your inputs. It's only going to help us improve our presentations and different sessions moving forward. So feel free to be very honest. It's only going to help us. You're not doing any favors holding back. So feel free to add your inputs of how improvements or what we're doing well on. Okay. And some additional support, ATS Zoom virtual hours. There's going to be a lot of support. That's if you're having any technical issues with the LMS, both right in Beachboard or Canvas, feel free to stop by in the virtual support room, which is via Zoom, and we're open Monday to Thursday from 9 to 6 p.m. as well as Friday from 9 to 5 p.m. Also, like I mentioned, if you have any other technical support issues or any questions within Beachboard or Canvas, feel free to send an email to beachboard@chop.edu. Okay, finishing off, we'll reach the Q&A portion of this presentation. I know the chat has been popping and lively with some of your questions, but feel free if none of them if it hasn't been answered, or you might have any other questions now, feel free to ask them. Jason, go ahead.
Hey, Jamie, I got a couple questions.
Hey.
So from your guys' point of view, how would you compare using like this Canvas org compared to using just a SharePoint intranet site besides the convenience factor of a one-stop shop? What's the big difference?
It's like the best way I could say is if you're just using it as a repository and it's just having like an information dump, and if you're having your participants kind of go through the course and it's not really organized in that manner, it's going to be like a little bit harder for them to kind of sift through and look for it. And then if you're solely just using it for a repository, then the act of them logging into the Canvas and sifting through the Canvas course is kind of like unnecessary. And if you're just having them look for files, I think OneDrive will be a lot easier, and they can just access through a link and look for the files that way. It's kind of like, I guess the best way to put it is like overkill. It's like if you had a chip in the car and you decided to get the whole car painted. It has a lot of capabilities, but if you're underusing some of the capabilities that Canvas or LMS has, then I would just defer to using a OneDrive, all right, a place to share documents and get it that way. But with that being said, I know in being in different departments, sometimes the department has an org, you just have to run it. These are just some suggestions and best practices. You don't have to follow them. That's why, that slide I had about department needs, getting to think about if it's a little bit more efficient and a better option to go away completely from the LMS, and your department's, okay with that, then that might be a better alternative. But like I said, sometimes that's not how the cookie crumbles, and we got to work with what you got. So these are just maybe alternatives, right? I know departments have different needs, but sometimes they'll be a little bit better. But it's all on the department. I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong way. It's merely just preference. But I just wanted for today, right? I just wanted to make some options available for you all to know that there are different options, other than just having to rely on an LMS like Canvas or Beachboard.
I know you mentioned there wasn't like a good example that you guys could have that kind of show what it can do for different organizations.
Mhm.
Does ATS plan on kind of building one just as a comparison so the rest of us staff can kind of take a look at, hey, this is what it possibly could look like, or maybe some of the modules and stuff like that?
Right, that's a good point, Jason. More of like an exemplar, right? And then we can provide that for anybody who's wondering and seeing how a perfectly modeling structured organization would look like, and maybe in exploration of looking at that, you can get different ideas and different
Yeah.
how to utilize different features. We don't currently have that, but that's a really good suggestion. That's just merely either it'd be looking for an org and showing a great example, or that's building it ourselves. We currently don't have that, but I think that's a really good idea to
Yeah, it just kind
showcase.
of helped me like figure out like when it would be a good time to use the LMS versus
Mhm.
SharePoint versus whatever else.
Right, right. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I think that's something I'll take back to the team. It's always good to have feedback from people who are participating, as well as how are we going to meet the needs of what the audience is asking for. So in your case, what's a good example? What does that even look like? Right?
Yeah, this
And,
is all new to me, so I
oh,
haven't used
okay.
Beachboard or Canvas, so that's I signed up for all these workshops to learn more about
Nice.
what it
Okay.
can and can't do.
Right. Yeah. This is a good introductory if you're kind of new to orgs. I guess this is just a brief introduction, right? There's many more things to learn about the LMS and all that good stuff. But yeah, unfortunately, no, not yet. But I think we're gonna have a conversation and see if we can develop something. It's not that hard, but I think it's just kind of creating an exemplar course to kind of be a catch-all, because we have to consider the many different ways different departments use an organizational course, and trying to capture that will be a little bit of a challenge. But I think that with that being said, I think it's going to be a really good resource to kind of add to anybody who's new and unfamiliar and a little bit, new to the organizational courses. But yeah, good question, and good suggestion, Jason.
No, I appreciate all these workshops you guys put together. I know
Awesome.
from faculty from other universities have praised Canvas and they say it's a platform, so that'll be nice.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, if not, I think we're scheduled to be here till 4. But if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot us an email at ats/instructionaldesign.edu. And yeah, you guys get 6 minutes back. Ooh. All right. Yeah. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Mhm. Mhm. All right.